up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a native New Yorker, Rasheen Davis. Rasheen Davis played at St. Thomas Aquinas High School in New York City. From there, he became an assistant men's basketball coach at St. Thomas Aquinas. From there, Rasheen was also the assistant basketball coach at the famous Rice High School. From Rice High School, Rasheen went on to Louisville to become a program assistant. After spending a year there, Rasheen headed to Pittsburgh to become the video coordinator. He then went to XAVIER for a couple of years. After a couple of years there, he actually went to Manhattan College, so he actually had a chance to go back home. And then from there, he goes to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, on there to UMASS in Amherst, Massachusetts, and then Arizona State. So Rasheen Davis, a longtime friend, has gone on and done big things in the college basketball ranks. Rasheen, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Just real quick, I went to St. Thomas Aquinas College, not high school, but it's okay. You told me more about, I forgot how many different places I've been to.
Now, Rasheen, that's my fault. Actually, I should have known that because I coached at New Haven for a year, and we were actually in the same league. Back then, it was 2005, 2006 when I was there for a year. And so I know the program really well. I will ask you several questions about your experience as a college basketball coach and hope to find out things about you that hasn't been told publicly before. And I'm not saying, you're saying names, you have to mention names or any of that thing, but we're trying to find out things that, that usually doesn't come out. So this is almost like a barbershop talk. We're going to start there with the first question. And the first question that I like to ask, ask all my guests is, there's no handbook to being a college coach. Tell me about your first day, the first week, the first month after things are done with human resources, especially when no one gives you directions.
Well, it's like you said, there is no blueprint. Fortunately for me, I got in at a time where, a high school guy or AAU guy could be on the staff and there were no penalties. So now if you're on support staff, the head coach cannot recruit a kid for 2 years out of your programs that you've been associated with. And when I got in, that was not the case. So that was my introduction to the Division I level. I was able to get in, fortunately with Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino, and be a part of his staff as the program assistant.
That's interesting. Next question. What was your best and worst recruiting story?
Well, I can't necessarily say I have a best recruiting story, but I have a all-time great, funniest one. And actually, it was down in your area. I bumped into a few college coaches and a pretty prominent AAU director, and we all got to witness a young man's teammates speak about how grateful they were to play with him. And then the cheerleaders came in and made up a cheer for that particular player. So that was a funny story. And, it's one of the things I'll never forget. I've never seen it before, never seen it since. But it's hilarious every time I think about it.
Yeah, you got me laughing thinking about it now. On a serious note, what did you have to give up to achieve your current level of success?
Pretty much everything. But the thing is, to me, anything worth having, you're going to have some sacrifices. If you want to be successful, whether it's college basketball, whether it's, being the best teacher you want to be, being a, entrepreneur, you're going to sacrifice some things. And, you miss some opportunities to be with your family for various things. It could be a birthday. It could be a, anniversary or a barbecue, whatever it is. And those are just things that your family members have to really understand and adjust to. And sometimes, your friends, your long-term friends, you kind of grow distant from it. And it's not that, you don't want to be friends with them anymore. It's just that you're chasing, what your passion is.
I mean, I totally agree with you. That's what I would think a lot of people understand outside of the business, how much family time you give up, we talk about it all the time, Rasheen, and, most people don't realize you probably working, who works 355 to 360 days out the year. I mean, that just doesn't happen to a normal person. And if you could get one thing back, a lot of times the first thing coaches says is, I wish I could get that family time back. So I agree with you on that.
I'm a little bit jealous. I'm not as lucky as you. If you was only working 360 days a year, I was doing something wrong, because I was working 366 days of the year. I had a leap year every year.
I try to count a couple of days during the holidays. That's it. But for the most part, you try to turn your phone off. But I don't know if you count that as working as much. But you're right. It's 12, 15-hour days at least. And you're working so many days. Even when you're on vacation, you're really not on vacation with your family.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of interesting because, there's a lot of wins, there's a lot of losses. And I don't think coaches, you can kind of hide stuff on TV, especially the amount of times you've been at, the highest level. So a majority of your games are on TV, or when people come to the arena, they might hear, coaches, but they don't hear it as loud because they're not close to the bench. But, this is kind of tied into what was your best and worst scouting report, because you get chewed out, whether people know it or not. It could be one little small thing and coach rips you about it because you didn't go over the lob in the pregame, in the walkthrough, or, you didn't talk about that situation. But, you've had some great games, some good games. Well, tell me, what was the best scout report? You nailed it. You got it 100% right. No questions asked. But then what's the worst scout report you had?
Well, to be honest with you, what I believe my best scouting report was actually an embarrassing loss. And I knew everything they was running, every play call, every action, every counter, and it didn't matter. It was at Gonzaga. I knew everything. And it was so bad. I mean, we had, this is when I was at Xavier, we had gotten to the point where all of our front court was fouled out. And we had a young man by the name of Des Wells, who was a 6'5" guard, guarding Robert Sacre, who was a 7-foot center.
Raleigh, North Carolina, right? Raleigh.
Yes, Des from Raleigh. Yeah, our entire front court got fouled out, but it didn't create the W, but I knew everything like the back of my hand, as if I was on staff there. And then in terms of getting chewed out, I didn't really get chewed out per se for a scout, but we had an opportunity to get a transfer at Manhattan. I didn't think he was good enough, and it was basically because that's what I was told by the place he was leaving. And then, we play him in a non-conference game, and he hits 7 threes. And each after the second three, I just got the look and got cursed out. Not fucking good enough, huh? Not fucking good enough. So that went on for about a week after the game.
Yeah, hey, coaches never forget. That's what people don't understand. And when you say something, they take your word for it. That's what people miss out on a lot. So if you say it, they're going to take it as the truth. And if you get it wrong, they're going to remind you over and over and over again. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's just like, you know what? I just got to sit here and take it, bury your head, and, move on to the next thing. That's what people don't get. Biggest challenge you have experienced since you have become a college coach?
Biggest challenge for me hasn't really been necessarily in the actual business. I think there's a misunderstanding of someone that's for myself, I'm not a big smiler, and a lot of times when people don't see you smiling all the time, they think something is wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong. It's just that I'm very observant, and I like to take things in, and I'm just not a person that smiles a lot. I have joy. I've been a part of some tremendous wins, and for example, we rebuilt Manhattan and won the MAC championship. I was extremely happy. Felt like we accomplished something together. But if you kind of look at the pictures, I wasn't really smiling. So what I've learned is, now I just smile sometimes just to smile, even though it's really not a reason to smile.
You know what? You took the next question out of my mouth with the answer of misunderstanding. But I'm gonna ask you the question anyway, because you can add on to sure something else that people misunderstand. But do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand, and what are they? Now, you've already mentioned the smiling part, but is there anything else that like people misunderstand about you? Especially in this game of college basketball.
I'm sure that there are things. Is it stuff that I'm particularly aware of? Not necessarily. I think I would say probably the biggest thing is, and in my opinion, I could be wrong. You have to speak to the people that I've been fortunate enough to work for, but I think some times people are surprised that my basketball knowledge. We all are in a business where you're constantly learning and constantly growing. Unfortunately for me, I've been really spoiled for the guys that I've worked for. I've worked for some of the best coaches in the business, and when you name those universities, you know who the head coaches are tied to them. And if you're there with them every day, even by mistake, you're gonna learn some things by mistake.
Right.
And so for me, sometimes I try to take something from everywhere I've been and apply it to the next place. So I'm a great stealer of ideas and a great stealer of workouts or terminology, stuff like that. So I think sometimes I have this reputation of being this recruiter, but when we talk basketball, I think sometimes I kind of catch people off guard a little bit.
What would you like, we're all educators, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. We love the game of basketball. It's been our passion since we were kids, and we're still in the business of grooming young men. And I always say this, Rasheen, like when I promise parents, when you drop your kid off at 18, 19 years old, even 17, when you drop your kid off to the campus, you've done your job for the first 17, 18, 19 years of his life. You've reared him, and I use the word reared because you raise cattle. You don't raise kids, you rear kids. So, when I say that is you've done your job of rearing your kid the first part of his life. Now, the next 4 to 5 years are the most important years of his life because he goes from boy to man. And this is the first time, he's going to be on campus. He's going to face adversity. He's going to go through things when mom and dad is not there to wake him up or things like that. So with all that being said, what would you try to teach your players besides basketball?
If you were to talk to any of the kids that I've been around, I guess young men, I very rarely do I even talk basketball. And whether that is the walk-on or whether that's the best player on the team, the majority of the time I'm not even talking basketball, and it really throws a lot of them off. But for me, I'm given the opportunity to really help impact the next 40 to 50 years of their lives. And for me, that's what my college coach, Dennis O'Donnell at St. Thomas, that's what he did for me and majority of my teammates. And then, it's really like, yes, wins and losses are very important because, this is how coaches feed their families, understandably so. But just as important it is to see a guy go across the stage and shake Adam Silver's hand, it's also important that I get that phone call, I'm about to close on my first house, or I just proposed, or I just had a baby, you know, would you come to the baby shower? Those type of things are important to me. And for me, when I recruit you, like I'm recruiting your whole family. So I know your aunties, your grandma, I know your girlfriend's mother, and you know, I just think that that's the best way to do it, because, you know, I don't care if you're at, you know, your dream school or your fallback school. There's going to be some great days and there're going to be some not great days. And the great days are always fine, but your family needs to know that there's someone there in those not so great days. And then, you know, there could be conversations, and they may not like the answers, but at least because of the relationship that was developed, they at least understand and hopefully feel like they've gotten the truth.
I totally agree with you, man. I mean, that's the thing about it. Like those, they trust you with their kids, and you know what? A lot of times, man, I get calls whether I'm at the place or I'm going away. I still get calls from these parents like, you know what you told me about my son, right? So, you know, those are long-lasting relationships that you have, and that's what it's about. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's about those long-lasting relationships.
I've had kids that I didn't get, who's called me about other kids within their organization or their neighborhood and plugged me with their parents that I wasn't even aware of, and they put me onto. And it's just one of them things that, you know, even though you don't get the kid, because they understand a little bit about you and what you stand for, they feel comfortable recommending you to, you know, the next person.
Exactly. You
and
know
all you are is the porch to your head coach in your university. You know, your job is to come across as someone that can really, as you said, help their son grow. And whether that growth is the NBA or whether that growth is just graduating and working for a Fortune 500 company, or, you know, becoming an entrepreneur, you really are the front porch to your university and your head coach. You know, 9 times out of 10, you have already established a relationship before you bring them, you know, to your head coach. And that's really where it's our responsibility in the business to really, you know, get people to feel comfortable with the university or the head coach, you know, that you're representing.
Totally agree. You know, I'm gonna ask you this. You know, like this is, you know, you've had highs because you've been to the NCAA tournament, you've won games. And so and it's always a best and worst with me, because, you know, in this business, there's highs, there's lows. But what are your best and worst memories in coaching?
I mean, my worst memory is, you know, at Pitt in Elite Eight, thinking you're going to the Final Four, and then you lose 4 seconds later. You can't leave the bench. You can't walk into the locker room, and you know, everyone is just like in utter shock. You know, and then in terms of my best, I mean, you know, you know, like I said, I really been spoiled. I've been really, really lucky. You know, I was a part of the staff at XAVIER where we had the brawl and everyone wrote us off, and you know, guys fought and battled. You know, Chris did a phenomenal job keeping that thing afloat, and you know, we end up, you know, going to the Sweet 16 and losing to a very good Baylor team. You know, Manhattan working for Steve. You know, we keep talking about going to the tournament, police escorts, media attention, and you know, none of them guys had never seen that, and then to actually do it, and really, you know, we you know, our first year we were in the game and really had opportunities to beat Louisville, and we end up losing a close one. You know, so you know, I would have to say probably those 2 experiences, the year of the brawl and my first year in Manhattan, were probably the most rewarding in terms of wins and losses.
All right. You know, like, yeah, like I said, people remember, you know, like the losses. That's what a lot of people don't understand. You know, the to win, those are the ones like you love. Those memories are always gonna be great. You can't take it away. But a lot of times, man, those losses just stick with you because it's like, what if this would have happened? One more play, that, you know, like all that stuff sticks with you because you feel like what could you done better to get you over the hump? And you know, that's what people don't get a lot of times is and how much you put into it, and you know, for that moment to kind of be like taken away from you, like just like that. You said 4 seconds. I mean, and that's just, you know, they talk about it all the time. They use the terminology like the jaws of defeat and all of that, but you know, those like stick with you for a long time, man. And I don't think people understand that a lot of times.
No, they don't. And what people don't realize is really mainly for those seniors, their blood and sweat equity, you know, once it's over, it's over. It's over. That's it. Like, you know, some guys are fortunate enough to play professionally, but that college experience is over. So you look at guys that have lived in the gym early in the morning, worked hard in practice, put in all that time, and whether you lose in your conference tournament or whether you lose in the Elite Eight like we did that year at Pitt, it's like, it's over.
Yeah.
You're talking about guys that probably have been playing their whole lives, and now it's that what next moment. It's definitely, it could be an emotional roller coaster.
True. And this is, I mean, it's still, you know, like I said, this is about stories, what's the unknown. Like, we've already been into it. I could kind of, you know, I'll tell you, you know, I can mention what mine was later on, but like, you know, what was the most stressful situation you faced, you know, in being in college basketball?
You know, fortunately for me, I'm pretty even kill. I don't really get too high or too low. I can't really say I really had a most stressful situation. But what I will say is, you know, there's a lot of things that lead up to what people see on TV. And it's really not just you show up for practice and show up for games. You know, you're pretty much doing everything for these young men. And you could be away recruiting and something goes on campus. You know, when we had the brawl, there was so much negativity that came from that. And this was really just, you know, young men being very emotional, and it's because it's high stakes. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, it spiraled into something a lot bigger than us coaches and the university, you know, due to the fact that it was on national TV. And what happens in those times, you know, you really find out who your friends are. And when I say friends, I don't mean guys that you go hang out with. And, you know, I'm talking about in terms of media. I'm talking about other coaches. I'm talking about other players, former players who all of a sudden say, yeah, he did this and he did that. And then we're also protectors. So we had to kind of, you know, try to keep those guys protected just walking around the campus from, you know, fans that may have felt some way. Or when you go to rival schools and fans are saying things that are not becoming. You know, we had a situation at one university where the coach from that university got on the mic and told the fans to cut it out. You know, which, you know, to me, that was the type of stuff that these young men were dealing with, you know, during that time.
Wow. Wow. I'm listening. And like I said, I like telling stories, and, you know, even better, you like listening to them a lot of times. So, you know, you getting other people, you know, just listening to their perception about things. It's always, it makes your stories even more interesting. But you don't have to say names on this next question, and I'm gonna ask you. But what is the strangest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court?
I mean, listen, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that these guys do. You got to understand, they're under the microscope all the time, and, you know, put yourself in their shoes, you know, 17 to 22, 23. You know, you're going to do some crazy things. I mean, you know, I had a 7-footer, you know, put a dress on and walk around campus just because he thought it was the funniest thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
Pretty funny. You know, had another kid walk around in a cup. Now, I'm assuming he got it from a baseball player or something, because basketball players typically don't wear jock straps.
They don't even wear them no more. I remember when I was as a player, you was kind of like forced to wear one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, everybody wears tights now, padded tights.
Exactly.
So I had a guy do that and run around the gym. So, I'd say that's probably, two of the more G-rated things that I could share.
I feel you. Listen, this is kind of it's like you work for some great guys, man. Going back to Patino, you worked with Marciello at Manhattan. You actually had a chance to work with Will Wade at VCU, and was out with Bobby Hurley, Jamie Dixon, who's now at TCU. Like, you've worked for some really good guys, but it may be somebody else outside of them. But if you had a chance to work for anyone in men's college basketball, who would that be and why? And you know what? And it could be an AD or a head coach. Like, you getting your own program. Like, you could, like, who would that be? Like, who would you want to work for? And tell me why.
I honestly never thought of that. Like, I never really said, hey, that's the guy I want to work for. So I don't know. Maybe you have to come back to me and let me think about that one.
I mean, because you know what, like that's what it's set up for, and I'm gonna let you think about it a little bit, and I'm gonna go to something like it's some things that and I want to say, like, or ask you, like, some things like, say, what movie, because you're a movie guy, you like TV shows, but what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
My week?
Your week.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. I like that. Okay. What's your favorite word or phrase?
My favorite word.
Or it could be a phrase. It could be something where you're in practice, something you say to the guys all the time. Like, there's something that's always stuck with you wherever you've been.
Prior preparation prevents poor performance.
I've been hearing that one since high school. That's definitely something I've heard since high school. We're winding up a little bit, but like, what was the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
In this business or in general?
In general. It don't have to be just in this, because I think basketball still relates to life. I mean, it relates to life. I'm not saying I know. It relates to life. So a lot of things that goes on in basketball goes to life, and it's vice versa. So it's always life lessons. But what was the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Never lose sight of who you are.
Love that. Love that. Where's your happy place? Where is your happy place?
Well, the people that know me know my happy place is therapy.
That I do. I mean, like, listen, we talk about it all the time. If I call you and say, Raw, where are you? You like, or I call you, don't answer, you'd be like, in therapy. I automatically know what that is. And for people who don't know that, and I can say it, it's the movie theater. That's his therapy.
Wait, movie theaters alone.
Alone. Sitting there. And look, I learned that from this man right here. I go to movies and I will sit in a movie theater by myself because it is the most relaxing therapy that you can have. Now, if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
Committed is definitely one. I'm always committed to whatever I'm involved in, at the time. A servant. I think any of us that are coaches, a part of our job is to be a servant, for the players that we're coaching, but, also for the university or college that we're representing. I think that's important. And then the last one, I would have to say, it's dedicated. I mean, I know it's the same as committed, but I think that there's a difference. A commitment is something that, you know, you're trying and doing your best to honor your word. I think the dedication piece is putting in the work to perfect, you know, your craft, or to perfect that particular situation you're in.
Awesome. So this is we got to go back to the question about who would you want to work for. You got to do that before I go out with the last question.
You're gonna really do that to me?
Listen, man. Listen, this is what it's about. We want to know the unknown. Like, hey, it might be some guys that's gonna be upset. You know what? But you got a name. Like, who would you want to work for?
I mean, it's some guys that I like. You know, and I really like that. You know, I like the coaches that are basically the guys that hold their guys accountable. So I always find myself liking those, you know, being, you know, into those type of guys. I can't really name one per se, but, you know, like I said, you know, I've been spoiled, you know, with the guys that I've worked for.
Well, I'm gonna say this. You know what? I'm gonna just say this then. Since you won't answer that question, I'm gonna give you this one. Who are your role models in coaching and why? Man, that should be a lot easier. Who are your role models? And I can kind of guess one of them, but who are your role models in coaching and why?
I mean, definitely I'd say, you know, my college coach, but, you know, he's not someone that everyone knows.
Right.
But for me,
but I don't mind. Like he was influential, so he's
yeah. No, he most definitely was. You know, he's actually Dennis O'Donnell's his name. He's the AD at Cardinal Hayes in New York City now, where Jamal Mashburn went. But you know, he just kind of showed me that you can be hard on someone, but also be, you know, caring and concerning. And I think that a lot of times, because we have to get guys to play at such a level, we forget the care and concern part. You know, so he definitely be one of them. I'd have to say, you know, Mo Hicks, who was at Rice High School. I learned a lot.
Shout out Mo Hicks. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Mo in sense of, you know, he really showed me how to, again, hold guys accountable and get guys to play at a certain level. And then, you know, in terms of, you know, people that I worked for, I've really learned and stole things from all of the guys that I've worked for. You know, and some things, you know, I try to implement, and some things I keep on the back burner for when, you know, the situation arises.
The last question, I like to always end with this question because, you know, you sometimes you think back and you don't, but like, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your young self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
Knowing what I know now, but what I tell myself to prepare for. You know, really, you just gotta, you know, what I know now is I would have done a better job of keeping my thoughts to myself. You know, what you learn in this business sometimes is, you know, you'll get asked a question, but it's not really one for you to answer. So it's more of a rhetorical question. And when you answer it and you answer it in your truth, you know, again, it can get misconstrued as something else. So, you know, you have to do a better job of knowing when to answer and what to answer. That's what I would tell my younger self.
That's awesome. So, you know, we're about to wrap this show up, and, you know, Rasheen Davis, one of the best assistant coaches in the country. You know, he's you know, when you want to label him, you label him as one of the best assistant coaches. You label him as a defensive guru because that's what he's known for. I label him as I label him as a brother. You know, so guy that we probably spend more time with than my own brother. You know, talking or the amount of times we've talked. So you know, he was definitely gonna be the first guy I wanted on this podcast.
Long way back to camp. You go a long way back to camp.
Way back. So, you know, so I mean, I thank him for that, for coming on the show, like I said, and being unmasked. Like he took a chance on this just because I asked him to do it, and it wasn't he didn't even hesitate to say yes, you know. So I appreciate that. That's something I wanted to do, and you know, say to you guys, stay tuned for the next guest as we get them to become unmasked as well. So, Rasheen, once again, appreciate it, and you know, look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it as well.
All right, take care, man.
All right, take care.